this legislation seeks to do. It gives the illusion of respecting the consciences of medical practitioners, but in reality refuses to allow them to say, I want nothing to do with this. And what makes it even worse is that none of this is actually necessary. None of this is necessary to facilitate women having abortions. It will be very easy to prepare a list of GPs who are perfectly willing to carry out these procedures and publish it on the internet. But ease of access isn't the point. Because like in the bake the cake bigot cases in Northern Ireland and in the US, the point is to target pro-life doctors. By having activists presented their surgeries, looking for an abortion in the hope that the doctor will refuse to transfer them to somebody else, refer them to somebody else. And once they refuse, the activists will report them to the authorities and try to ruin them. In none of the cake cases that have taken place and been reported on around the world, has it been realistically suggested that the couple concerned needed to go to the only Christian baker in town. The bakers were chosen specifically because they were Christian to expose them to opprobrium and financial disaster. And just like in the cake cases, where the couple simply cross the street and obtain their wedding confectionery from another baker, once the GP refuses to refer, the activist, if she's even pregnant at all, will simply go to another GP whom she knew from the outset would provide her with an abortion to obtain the abortion pills or whatever she is looking for. The abortion will be carried out, and as a fringe benefit, a bigoted GP will be exposed. For a conscientious doctor, an insipid and ineffective conscience clause such as that proposed adds the threat of legal and professional sanctions to the already present threat of Twitter mob justice. The point is to punish dissent. Now, I said from the outset the negativity wouldn't get any better. I think I was good on my promise. But one thing did strike me about what Father Bill said at the outset, and that was the image of the mustard seed and the kingdom of heaven and faith. And it is, I think, because we're at an Irish Catholic event and we are here in a Catholic church, I think it is important to say that in all the debates that raged, and indeed in the position paper that's been published, there is a big play made out of Catholic medical ethics. No other denomination is singled out. And you know what? We should be proud of that. We should be proud to be dissenters against what is a really morally unjust law in all its aspects. So I would encourage you, don't let that mustard seed fall by the wayside. Encourage it, work together and let it grow so that, as we're told in the Gospel, it turns into one of the greatest shrubs. Thank you.
So David Quinn dragged us into the Coliseum and told us how we got there. Maria Steen introduced us to the lions. And we're hoping Rita can show us the escape. Rita O'Brien. Rita O'Brien, also recognized from her well-known column in the Irish Catholic. Some of you may have wrapped your fish in a newspaper called the Irish Times. She also writes for them. And that's a joke I've written for them recently, so I'm quite grateful that they gave us the space to talk about the Newman Center. She's also a wonderful wife and mother and a school teacher, and serves the community in so many ways, and we look forward to hearing from Rita tonight.
really feel we're kind of, do you know Matthew Arnold's poem, Dover Beach? You know the last lines of it, and we are here as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night. I think I personally, and I know loads of my friends felt that really strongly, so I'm going to push this up a little bit, and still feel it after the referendum. So, is there light at the end of the tunnel, or is it an oncoming train? I think we have to take the long view, and that's not easy to do. We want it to go away. We want to go back to a situation where you could go to your GP and know that the woman next to you was not going to be looking to end the life of a member of the next generation. We want to be able to go to our obstetrician and not to have to find out whether she's somebody who's quite comfortable with taking the life of a member of the next generation. We want to go back to feeling that our GPs are not going to be persecuted. I mean, we're talking about people's livelihoods here. This is, this is really, really serious. So we want it to go away. But if we look, I think maybe we could, without, I have to be careful how I say this, resorting to some of the tactics of our opposition, if we can look at the fact that they had a long view, and that, we should maybe be thinking about the 35 years. My husband, Brendan, and I met a very interesting woman in Austria a couple of years ago who was doing exactly that. She and a group of friends were looking at the political system, looking at the media and so on, and thinking, how do we get to where we want to go in 40 years' time? Now that's a particular mindset, but it's exactly what the other side did. So, does that mean we sit back on our rear ends and do nothing? Absolutely not, it doesn't. Matthew Arnold, as a poet, as you probably know, was sentimentally attached to Christianity but didn't believe a word of it. We have a problem in our church with people who mightn't quite fit that category, but who do not believe a central teaching of our faith, which is that every life comes from God and goes to God, and it is not our right to take innocent life. So, I hugely appreciate the many people who are not people of faith who got involved in this campaign. I hugely appreciate them. But I think we all know that if every Mass-going Catholic had actually voted against this, we probably wouldn't be here. Certainly, okay, maybe we, sunshine and butterflies here says we still wouldn't have won it. But I think we'd have got a great deal closer. Somebody needs to do a thesis on the exit poll that was conducted. It's the most bizarre thing, the exit poll that was conducted the night of the referendum. For example, only 12% of people said they were influenced by their religious belief in voting, but 74% of people identified as Catholic. Something like 30% declared themselves to go to Mass weekly, and another 14% to go once a month. None of these figures add up if you were talking about core Catholic beliefs. So we have a massive job among our own people, and we're reaping the whirlwind of a long time of poor catechesis, poor preaching, and poor witness by lay people as well. So we need, I think we need to really look at everything that we do that, and I say this with absolute love in my heart for all the people who have no belief, who believe this too, and I'm not wishing in any way to damage any alliances with them. I think those alliances are really, really important. But we need to actually look at what's wrong in our own community and what can we do to build community. A community that actually transmits something and that actually challenges people. Like I've heard the barnstorming homilies that Father Bill gives here, wonderful, erudite, well-reasoned homilies, and we need more of those. But with the best will in the world, the priests are not going to solve this for us. It's down to us. It's down to us. And I think we actually need to look at how credible we are as witnesses. And we need to, the fact is, the culture does not believe us when we say love both. They don't believe that we love both. Now, I'd love, just for one day, that everybody who's motivated by her or his faith would just withdraw their labour from all the voluntary and other areas that they're involved in and just see where the country would be left, even still. Even still. Like so many lone parents dependent on Vincent de Paul, so many travelling families dependent on cross care, and so on. You know, all of those things. But we need to step up that commitment, and we need to step up that commitment very strongly. The old model doesn't work any longer. The model of where the young woman is stigmatised for becoming pregnant and they need to leave for a family and go live somewhere else, because those days are gone, thank God, you know. But the model that facilitated that, we need an actual, the stigma has transferred itself now, if you're a young person, to actually continuing with the pregnancy. There's a huge cultural thing we need to. We're not going to get, and as David pointed out quite rightly, we're not going to get any slack whatsoever from most of the mainstream media. So we need to do what? We need to do this kind of 40-year plan. Like I was involved in the National Women's Council as a foot soldier in the 1990s. And I just watched it in awe as the least democratic organisation in history, you know, spoke on behalf of women with an authoritative voice, even though they didn't represent most of the women that I knew. And then I watched those same women make their way into consultancies and into government departments and into, you know, and all you can say is fair dues to them. They were committed to what they believed in. And they were working from inside the structure. That's why our lobbying laws, by the way, don't, you know, are so weak, because what do you do if the people are actually inside the structure? You know, they're not lobbying from the outside, they're actually, you know. But anyway, that's another day's work. So we need to start looking at that. The vocation of Christians is in the world, so we need people in the professions and in and even, God help us, in journalism and in so many other areas that are actually committed. But they need not to be single issue, I think. I think they need to be seen to be people of compassion, to be people of a broad Christian viewpoint. And that involves, you know, loving both, being there for those who are in distress and being there and being seen to be there. And it's, you know, there's a great Christian tradition of, you know, not letting the left hand know what the right hand is doing when giving charity. But in a sense, we need to build up credibility. We need to actually, you know, come out and encourage people to come out. Like lots of people are involved in charities are actually people who are also anti-abortion and pro-life, but they're afraid. They're afraid. And those of you who've heard me speak before know that I'm obsessed with a book called The Spiral of Silence, which was written in the 1960s in Germany, and was looking at why would some people not say they were voting for particular political parties. And she realised we're social beings, and therefore if we feel that our opinion is not going to be popular, we go quiet. And then what happens is that you're sitting side by side with somebody and you do not know that they feel the same way as you do. And then after a generation or two, fewer and fewer people. So you need to break the spiral of silence. You need to actually, and you need to do it in a way that's intelligent, that's courteous. None of these are values that are greatly, you know, liked in our, but you need to do it in that way. You need to break the spiral of silence around that. And we need to do that in small ways, whether it's by wearing a badge that, you know, we are the 1 in 3 badge, I don't know if you've seen those, or something similar, so that, you know, we haven't gone away, you know. It's really important. People need to wear symbols, they need to speak to people. I had a crazy situation, like everybody knows what I feel about abortion in my staff room and everywhere else. But I discovered that I had a former colleague who was just as passionately pro-life as I was, and I never knew it. So that's the spiral of silence. I discovered it when I discovered her walking her legs into stumps during the referendum on our side of the fence, but I didn't know it. So that's the typical kind of spiral of silence thing, and that's the kind of thing we need to actually break. In terms of the media, whatever you think about Jordan Peterson, the Canadian academic and psychologist who is a phenomenon, is a phenomenon. Whatever you think about him, what I personally think about him is, yes, absolutely full of sunshine. He and David should get together. His message is very somber. For me, it's a message without the light of grace in a way, because it's all about get your act together, but it's something that young men in particular are responding to. But he is a phenomenon because of the internet. Because he started putting his lectures up online, and because he started, dealing directly, bypassing mainstream media. Like they were talking recently about his book, saying, how did he ever get to sell all those books, seeing as he wasn't on any of the popular shows that sell books in America? And it's because of a kind of word of mouth. So we dipped our toe in the water in this referendum in that area, and some people are very talented at it, and other people need to discover their talents in it, but it is definitely an area that needs to be developed. And that's an area where young people are really going to be to the fore, because they understand it and they speak the language. And like my young, what's that awful? What's that interesting website? Oh, What a Complete Ashling or something like that. What's it called? Anyway, if you don't know what it is, you're not a certain age, but they come out as a pro-choice. It's also a book, yeah. So that became a community where people reinforced each other. We need secular versions of that have the same kind of credibility. And it can be done. The thing about culture is that culture changes. We're reeling from the way it has changed with incredible rapidity. But in a way, the volatility of the current culture is actually on our side, because things change overnight. But so, they can also change back. So I also think we need to do some serious kind of rebranding in terms of our image, not just so that people will believe us. You see, we do love both. We do care about mother and father and baby. We absolutely do. Like I remember many moons ago going from a pro-life rally to a rally which was organised about a situation in East Timor, and the overlap was striking. Do you know what I mean? The same people were at the rally, but the media would never believe that. They would never believe that. We were only interested in one thing. We're only interested up until they're born. But there's an American organisation called Rehumanize International, and the Rehumanize is to make the baby human in people's eyes again. So they do things like they go onto college campuses and they look at the dehumanizing languages. For example, there was yellow peril as an example, which was used by the Japanese during the Second World War as an excuse to intern them and take away their human rights. And then all the other kind of terms. And then fetus is in there in the middle, And what does that do? It dehumanizes. So they look at that and they have a very consistent ethic kind of view. Their mission statement is we work to ensure that each and every human being is every human being life is respected, valued and protected. As such, we oppose all forms of aggressive violence, including but not limited to abortion, unjust war, capital punishment, euthanasia, torture, embryonic stem cell research, assisted suicide, abuse, human trafficking, police brutality. Now people say you can't spread yourself that thin, but in fact if you're not interested in a wide spectrum, like one of the things that's thrown at the pro-life movement in America all the time is, you're pro-capital punishment, but you're not, you're anti-abortion. Those two seem to be kind of tied together. And that is it's not a Catholic viewpoint in terms of course there's a prudential judgment about capital punishment, and people, can have different viewpoints on it, but it's just gun control perhaps might be a better example to take, But so in terms, to sum up then, briefly, we need to look to our own first and see what we can do and how we can look those painful one-to-one conversations in love, talk to our own community. We need to develop our credibility in terms of practical action, things like Hugh's House, which is a house for people whose babies are in hospital with long-term illnesses. All those kind of things. We need to be seen to be there and to be doing them. We are doing them, but we need to be seen to be doing them. We need to take the long view. We need to get involved in political parties, but not get married to any of them, because they will let us down. That's just a fact. But casual flings with political parties, this is what I have. And we need to break the spiral of silence. And I began with the grim and depressing Matthew Arnold, but I'm going to end with Catherine of Siena. Preach the truth as if you had 1,000,000 voices. It is silence that kills the world. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Before we open up the floor for questions, do any of you have anything you'd like to comment in response to one another or a question for each other?
Just a quick comment. As Maria was doing her piece, I was just filled with such horror. I mean, when you actually, I'm familiar with this legislation, when you actually see things like the thing about the extraordinary means, does that mean if a baby can't survive without an incubator, that baby is, like, how many babies do we know and love that spend time in incubators? Is that an extraordinary means? Like, how have we become this savage? Sorry, that's definitely not sunshine and butterflies, but it was just my reaction to it. And I think we need to talk about that to people as well. We need to be saying, do you realise? Because of the people that David was talking about, people said, well, I kind of got in here and I voted yes, and I'm not really sure why. This is what you voted for. Are you going to ring your TD and say, I'm thrilled with this, or would you consider emailing your TD and saying, I'm appalled, I didn't vote for this? And these are the yes voters I'm talking about, that iffy kind of people who felt who were won over by the pro-choice, compassionate thing. I mean, it is really appalling stuff.
If I can just say that the horror of kind of modern liberal societies which place so much store by autonomy is the idea of the unchosen burden. So I didn't choose to be pregnant, that's an unchosen burden, I must be allowed to set it aside, and the church is doing this because it's getting in the way of my choice. Alright? Another one is, a man says, well, you're having the baby, but I don't want you to have the baby, so I don't have to stand by you. So I'm taking off, and that's his choice, because he regards the baby as an unchosen burden, and again, his autonomy has to be respected, so his autonomy to take off has to be respected. And then, of course, at the other end of life, the unchosen burden, you might decide your illness is the unchosen burden, and therefore you have a right to end your own life, or you have a right to kind of pressure actually your parent, isn't it really better now, that for your own sake, that you shuffle off your mortal coil and accept the injection, because we see this happening in places like Belgium and Netherlands and Canada, and now they're euthanizing children in Belgium. So this great horror of the unchosen burden, but you see the trouble is, and this is what we've got to make clear to society, I think is what will become clear to society over time, someday you will be the unchosen burden. This is the problem. Okay, so that's great, I can set aside that burden, and therefore make myself happier. That's going to be you someday. You'll be somebody else's unchosen burden. And what does Christianity teach? Christianity says that sometimes you must take up your unchosen burden, which of course is our cross at various times in our life. And if people are not willing to do that, if everybody is allowed to cast aside their unchosen burden, including you, we become an incredibly inhumane society, curiously in the name of tolerance. Because we're saying that the tolerant society lets people make whatever choice they like, and as I say, the horror is the unchosen burden, which you're allowed to kill. That becomes an incredibly inhumane society in the name of tolerance and choice. So I think over time that becomes clear to people, and as Breda was saying, no social and moral consensus lasts forever. The pro-life one lasted 35 years and then gets completely reversed. So this will not last forever. There's no social consensus, no moral consensus lasts forever. And if eventually every society begins to see its own defects and then begins to say, how did we ever believe that? And that day will come.
I have one question. I'm a lawyer, some of you may know, in the United States, we have certain tethers of law called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act in particular. that, for instance, Christian bakers may avail themselves of to try to challenge certain aspects of our law. Is there anything in the Irish Constitution or statutory law that gives doctors, for instance, a chance to fight in the courts for conscience protections, or does it all just come down to what's provided for in the legislation?
But there is a freedom of conscience and religion recognised in the Constitution. But what's interesting actually is that the position paper that I referred to by the four legal academics, they recognise that freedom of conscience and freedom of religion exists. But what they say, and they would be people who would otherwise, I think, hold themselves out as being proponents and defenders of civil rights and human rights. But what they say is that where there is a conflict between the doctor's rights and a woman or a pregnant person who is looking for an abortion and their rights, they argue that the balance should tip in favour of the pregnant woman. And I suppose that's what we're waiting for. We don't know. We're in a situation where I guess it's going to be tested over the next few years. And the same women, those nice ladies, have suggested that that doctors should, in effect, pro-life doctors should, in effect, be blacklisted. That if they refuse to perform an abortion, they should put it in writing to their patient. Presumably this is to create a paper trail by which they can then be followed. They also suggest that they should have to inform the Department of Health in advance. Again, this looks very like the creation of a blacklist. And then furthermore, they exhort the Medical Council to provide guidelines as to how to discipline doctors who refuse to refer women in these circumstances. So they clearly have become emboldened in the last 3 months. And this is just, over the summer vacation. What they will be saying in 6 months' time, a year's time, and certainly the complexion that we have in your office at the moment, with so few TDs and centres willing to stand up. So initially we had difficulty with people changing sides kind of midstream during the debate. But now, since the referendum has been passed, the politicians who voted no, came out and voted no, are now saying they will vote to legislate. And so it seems, I can't see that the Oireachtas will defend the rights. It doesn't look that way to me unless some miracle happens. So we're in a very difficult, and I suppose we're in uncharted waters, I suppose. So it's,
So all the panelists will be sticking around. We will take a couple of questions now from the floor. The briefer your question, the more we can get into it. So, right here.
Well, I congratulate you on this very interesting information. But none of you, including you, Father, have mentioned it's the Catholic Church that we have absolute debate. Nationalists still doesn't make Catholic. It takes a lot of courage to stand up and, you lose friends, people call you bigot, homophobe. It takes a lot of courage, and that's the Catholic Church to me. If they can properly, people have more confidence to vote on. That's my opinion.
I'll just address that quickly. I mean, there were some bishops issued statements. Oh, sorry, the question. No, I was just going to, sorry, did you hear the question? Yes. Hang on. I'm just going to, I have to repeat the question. So the Catholic Church should have done more. What's the essence of it? And if it had done more, we'd be in better shape. Some bishops, well, all bishops released statements of some kind. I'm not sure how much pick-up they got, to be honest. Some priests in their own parishes did good work, but an awful lot of priests did very, next to no work in their parishes. And there hasn't been consistent catechesis on this anyway. I mean, you can go from one end of the year to the other and never hear a thing about the right to life whatsoever. I mean, I hear people sometimes criticising Pope Francis, but actually Pope Francis, when you actually look at what he says about abortion, it's very strong. He sometimes compares the abortion industry to the mafia, for example. But we very rarely hear that kind of talk here. And so that has been a problem. There's no question about that. So a third of Catholics who go to Mass every week end up voting yes. So the lack of consistent catechesis in parishes is definitely a big problem.
Questions about how a Catholic hospital with a Catholic ethos will have to respond to this, Marie?
Well, we're told that that there will be no institutional conscientious objection or freedom of conscience. That freedom of conscience belongs only to individuals, and so that it won't be open to institutions, to hospitals, to have basically a pro-life policy. That seems to be the government's stated position. There's nothing in the Act in the heads of the bill to propose that would suggest that a hospital could take such a stance. And again, certainly repeal proponents would, I think, object vigorously to the idea, particularly of state-funded hospitals, notwithstanding that they have a Catholic ethos and whose boards are run by religious or priests and bishops and so on, that they would not be protected. And the fact of the matter is, a Catholic hospital cannot, in conscience, carry out abortions. My own view, for what it's worth, is that if the state is going to proceed in the way that it says, that I think the bishops of Ireland should be getting out of healthcare altogether and out of education, and say to the state, make us an offer for basically the care and sites and buildings that we've been providing to the state free gratis since the inception of the state, and then set up proper Catholic hospitals our position in Iona, that there should be state-funded denominational education and healthcare. But the way things are going at the moment, I don't think this is really a functioning democracy in that sense, because the ethos, the religious ethos, is not being respected, and there certainly is a move afoot to completely wipe that out. And so I think that, in fairness, as the man who commented earlier, in fairness to the lay faithful, the bishops, I think, have a duty to stand by the lay faithful who are trying their best to live a Christian life in what is very difficult circumstances and often very lonely, often a very lonely place where, as you pointed out, you are derided for your beliefs and called all kinds of names. And we need good shepherds to protect us and mind us and basically provide forums for us, whether it be schools to send our children to, or hospitals where we don't have to, as Breda says, worry about whether the doctor looking after us, would be happy to kill somebody else's baby. I mean, that thought. I gave birth to my 4 children not far from here in Holles Street, and the idea that, of having to give birth on a table where hours before somebody else's baby might have been killed, that you bring your baby into the world in that way, just fills me with horror and sadness. That the scanning machines in the hospital that are dating the age of my baby might be used to diagnose something in another child that would be the cause of their death. I don't think a Catholic conscience cannot allow that, and so I think we have to. There's no doubt, but that many priests and bishops are afraid.